So we're finally at the launch of Modern Warfare 2, and this video is going to go over what are the best settings to use inside the multiplayer. Now, depending on your region, this will already be available to you to play. However, if you are in the UK, unfortunately, we do need to wait a couple more hours just to get our hands on the multiplayer. But like I said, these settings should get you through starting off inside the multiplayer as best as you possibly can. So the main settings we're going to go through are controller, graphics, and audio. We do play on PC, but we do play with controller, so if you do want the controller settings, then stick around for this video. And don't forget to subscribe as well if you want to stay up to date with everything regarding Modern Warfare 2. So let's start off with the standard controller settings. You want to choose your controller, of course. Button layout should either be default or tactical. I do still have paddles in the back of my controller, but with this game, it's not really all that necessary anymore because slide cancelling is not really that much of a thing. So you can definitely choose tactical if you want to slide with the analog stick instead. Personal preference on that one, but I think between these two settings are obviously the best. Now, when it comes to flipping the actual triggers, now this will basically mean you shoot with your bumpers instead of the triggers. Some people prefer that because there's less of a travel distance there. Personally, I still like to use the triggers anyway. I think it just feels better to me, but you can swap them and it will give you a little bit of an advantage in terms of timing. Obviously, you do still need to account for the ADS of your actual weapon anyway, so keep that in mind. That's what I find that feels pretty weird to me, that when I'm aiming down sights, it still takes a little bit of time for your gun to ADS regardless. So that's something that I've found that just makes it feel a bit strange. Stick layout, you want to set that to default. Controller vibration, you want that off. Horizontal and vertical stick, in my opinion, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 is exactly where you want to have it. Anything too high than that is a bit ridiculous in my opinion. Anything lower than that, again, is a bit ridiculous in my opinion. Now, obviously, 19% of players will be sitting in between that region. Now, personally, I play on a 6, so if you do want to just copy my settings identically, then you could do that. Just make sure both of the sensitivities are exactly the same. Then when it comes to sensitivity multiplier, I have not changed this because I do feel like in the campaign I was driving vehicles around perfectly fine. There's no real reason to change this. I think the only thing that might change it slightly is air vehicles inside Warzone, but again, we'll probably adjust these settings slightly when Warzone does drop, so obviously we'll be waiting for that. When it comes to vertical aim axis, you do not want to change this. You want to leave that as standard. Aim down sight, obviously what is hold. Automatic tac sprint, I have set on, and I've just had this since Modern Warfare 2019. I just enjoy having it on, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, it's not all that important anymore because it's not going to be, it's like allowing you to slide cancel, so you don't really need it. But it's up to personal preference here. I'd rather just not mashing my analog stick too many times if I don't have to. Equipment behavior, you want set to hold. Now, originally it was set to toggle inside the beta for some reason, so when you were trying to throw like a Semtex or something, it would actually hold it in your hand for a while, and then you had to press the button again to then actually throw it. I don't really like that kind of way of doing it, so hold basically means when you're holding onto the button, it holds onto the grenade or whatever, and then it will throw it once you let go, so that's the way I like to do it. Weapon mount activation is ADS and melee. Interact reload behavior is prioritize reload first. Now, I just personally like that. You could prioritize picking up a weapon first, but I just think if you're going to be wanting to reload the main weapon that's currently in your hand before you do anything else. Now, when it comes to advanced settings, target aim assist you want on, of course. Aim assist type you want set to default. It is the best, in my opinion, especially so you can get that rotational aim assist when you're hip firing. That's kind of the main one of the ones that you kind of miss out on if you pick any other option here. Then I do choose dynamic. Now, standard or dynamic, both are really solid options. Is that I'm so used to using dynamic now, I can't really change. ADS aim assist, obviously you want that on, of course. Then when it comes to ADS multiplier focus, I have this set to 1, which is basically the standard default setting. ADS sensitivity, transition and timing, you want to set this to instant. Basically, you don't want any delay between you and ADSing your weapon, so just make sure that's set to instant. Sensitivity paired zoom, you obviously want to set this as well. So I have everything set to 0.8 up to a 4 to 5 times optic zoom. The reason for that is because these are most likely going to be assault rifles, SMGs, LMGs, those kind of weapons. Anything above a 6 is likely to be a sniper rifle, and you want to be able to kind of be a bit more snappier with that than you want to be with an assault rifle. So like I said, I have that set to 1.1 just so that you feel that aim assist kicking in when you are hovering over a target. Input's dead zone, you want to make sure your dead zone is down to 0.05 on the triggers and on the left and right stick, but also just keep in mind if your controller is a little bit older, what you want to do is put your dead zone all the way down to 0 in a private game, see if your controller is moving about, and then one by one increment this up until that stick drift stops. Essentially, that is the best way to get your dead zone perfect, but obviously depending on your controller settings, like I said before. Now, when it comes to auto move forward, you don't want that on. Single tap to sprint, just so I'm not mashing my analog stick in too much. Grounded mantle, you want this off so you're not just mantling on things for the sake of doing it. You want to be able to intentionally mantle by pressing the jump button twice. Automatic airborne mantle, again, have the set to off. Again, you want to make sure you're jumping onto things intentionally when you intend to do that. Automatic ground mantle, again, off as well. Invert, slide, and dive behavior. This is a really good setting, actually, for people who prefer this. So basically, what it will do is if you want to dive now in the game, you actually need to hold in the circle button or your dive button. But if you want to slide, you just tap the button, but you can switch that around now, which is a really good setting. Wasn't in the beta before, but I think a lot of people might actually prefer it the other way around now, depending on which one's a bit more overpowered, because sliding wasn't really that powerful inside the beta. So a bit more testing on that one. I'll get back to you on that one, to be perfectly honest, because I think diving might be the way forward. So if that is the case, then obviously you'd want tap to be the dive. So like I said, we'll test that going forward and then figure it out. Plunge freely is the best way to swim in this game. It just means that you can move up and down with the analog stick, super easy, and then you don't need to worry about it, because otherwise you need to basically click the sprint button to then dive down underwater. It's a really weird setup when it comes to the settings there, so plunge freely is the best option. Automatic door dash, when you're sprinting through it, I have set to on. I just prefer it that way. It's the way it used to work in Warzone. Then ADS stick swap, you don't want to change that. Backpack alternate control, you do not want that either, because this will make you start moving forward automatically. It's a really weird setting, I don't really know why. Weapon mount movement exit, so if you move basically in general, it'll take you off the mount, which is what you want. Exit delay short, again, you don't want any delays at all if you can help it. Depleted ammo weapon switch, I have set to off because you're going to move faster with an SMG or a pistol. You might want to keep that in your hands even though you don't have any ammo. Quick detonation on C4 by double tapping square, you definitely want that on, 100%. Vehicle camera recenter, I have this shit set to short delay. This is the default setting, I'm pretty sure, so I have that set up there. Camera initial position is free look. Again, this is the default one, I'm pretty sure as well. Now, when it comes to scoreboard, ping wheel, and the double tap danger ping, I have this set to hold, because I think if you hold the scoreboard, you get to see what it looks like. Once you let go, it's gone. You don't need to worry about keeping pressing the button to get rid of it, so that's the way I prefer to have it. Ping wheel delay, so when you are trying to ping certain things or do emotes or whatever it is, there is no delay between that, and again, no delay when you're trying to have a danger ping as well. You do not want to have any delays between anything, let's be perfectly honest here. Now, when it comes to graphic settings here, this is the kind of one that kind of mainly goes towards the PC people, but also it does apply to some console settings as well, so just keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to display mode, you want full screen, you want to make sure your monitor selected, you want to make sure your graphics card selected, you want to make sure your screen refresh rate is as high as possible, especially if you've got a PC with a monitor. Again, this might apply to some PlayStation players and Xbox players that can play with a higher refresh rate now on these new titles. Then obviously you want to make sure the highest resolution is selected. Dynamic resolution, make sure this is off, it's not going to help you at all. Aspect ratio, make sure it's the same as your display. VSync off, VSync menus off. Custom frame rate limit, I have set just a little bit above what my monitor can handle. The shaders, make sure your shaders are always up to date, otherwise your game's going to play horrendous. Shader optimization, make sure this is done as well. Again, your game's going to play horrendous. Display gamma, I have set to the standard default. Brightness, I have set to 60. Again, I do think it works really well in this game too. Focus mode is off, so there's nothing really we need to worry about here. When it comes to quality, you want to make sure you set it to custom so you can actually mess around with the settings. Render resolution, make sure you have set this set to 100%, which I don't know why mine wasn't for some reason. and that is going to make sure it matches up with your monitor settings. Upscaling and sharpening, you want to make sure this is off. Fidelity cast was on Vanguard as well, and it was on console, and it just made the game look like absolute crap, so just make sure you turn it off. Filmic 2x is the one that you want for anti-aliasing. Anti-aliasing normal. Video memory scale I have set to 60. Then we've got texture resolution I have set to low. Anisotropic normal. Nearby details high. Distant details high, just to make sure we are capturing all the details of any enemies that might be in a close or further range distance. Clutter draw distance is short. This is for like lighting and stuff like that. Again, particle quality is low, particle quality levels normal. Bullet impacts and sprays, make sure this is on so you can see the recoil of your weapon. This is good for testing guns. Not only that, it's good for testing your aim. Not only that, it's good for seeing if enemies are nearby. Shader quality I've set to medium. Tessellation I've set to near. Terrain memory is set to minimum. Because again, it's not really all that important, to be honest. Let's be perfectly honest, unless you can see like footsteps in the mud, is not really going to help us here. On-demand texture streaming, you want this set to off. I don't think there's ever a case where this actually does help all that much, and usually most bugs that come from games is actually from this one setting, so it's just a really weird thing. Streaming quality normal. Volumetric quality is also normal. You can have this set to low as well. I don't think it really matters too much. Deferred physics quality low. Water acoustics is on, but you can also turn that off, but I don't think it really matters too much to the actual performance. Shadow map quality I've set to very low. You can also set it to low, but you don't really need it too high. You just need to make sure it is available so that you can see shadows of enemies when they are around the map. Screen space shadows is low. Spot shadow quality should be low as well. Cache spot shadows is on. Spot cache is low as well. Particle lighting, you can have this set to whatever you want really. It doesn't really affect your performance too much, so I have it set to high. Ambient inclusion I have set to off. Screen space reflections I have set to normal. Static reflection quality I've set to high, and that's because I'm not really too sure exactly what this does, to be perfectly honest, so I just don't want to make sure I'm missing out on anything. Now the rest of these settings are console settings, so make sure you do pay attention to these ones. So when it comes to NVIDIA low latency, I have on plus boost. This is not a console setting. Depth of field, motion blur, weapon motion blur, and film grain all should be off. These are console settings as well. Make sure you turn all these off. It's only going to impact your screen and what you can see. As you can see on the graphic that is behind the camera right now, there's a lot of blur in that image, and if you're trying to swipe past your screen to spot enemies, is not going to help no one at all, so just make sure that's off. When it comes to view now, this is a huge setting which is in console. Field of view, make sure you have this set to whatever you like. Obviously anything between 90 and 120 I think is the best. I like to whack it all the way up, but the main thing here is make sure you have your ADS field of view affected, and this means that when you ADS, your field of view still takes place in the game, so that you can still see a lot more on your screen, so that's really important to have. When it comes to weapon field of view, I have this set to default, and that is just because I feel like it doesn't really make too much of a difference, to be honest. And then vehicle field of view I have set to default as well. Again, a bit more testing will need to be done when Warzone comes out for things like this, because vehicles are more important in those game modes, or even in the larger scale game modes we might get some testing done, but for now I think default is perfectly fine. When it comes to first person camera movement, I have this set to the least. You do not want that much shake on your camera whatsoever. If there was an option to put it down to 0, we really should do that, but we don't have that unfortunately. But this is if you're getting shot at or there's a lot of explosions going on nearby. You want to make sure that you're not getting any camera shake so you can keep your aim on target. Now, moving on to audio settings, you could choose whatever you want here. I think home theater is the best audio sound I have found so far for headphones. I've tried headphones as well, and I've tried headphones bass boost, and it doesn't really work all that well for me, so I think home theater is the best. Music volume, I would turn this all the way down, especially for multiplayer. I had it on for the campaign because it makes it a bit more cinematic and all that good stuff, but for multiplayer you want this all the way off. It doesn't really help anything. So there we have it. Those are the best settings. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and we will be making way more content when the full game drops for us here in the UK. Thank you very much for watching.